Hey, 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 hey. How is everybody doing in the chat? Hello to everyone on Facebook, on two YouTube channels. We got Twitch, we got Kick. What is everybody up to? It is 6:37 Eastern Time. Have y'all did y'all Christmas shopping? Are y'all ready for Santa Claus tomorrow? Ooh, Santa Claus is coming to town. How many of y'all? Wait a minute, y'all. Let me. Okay, sorry about that. That was my son calling. But hey, have y'all did y'all Christmas shopping? What are y'all up to? Ooh, I don't know. It's just something about the holidays that just brings unnecessary stress. Cause I actually wanted to go out by the mall today to grab some stuff. And I just said, you know what? I'm not going. I could just wait to after because I went out there not today, but yesterday, and I literally went to like two stores that were in walking distance, and it was like 4 hours of traffic. So I said, I'm not. Because what I was going for, I really didn't need. So I'm like, I cannot do the mall. Like, I just don't have the energy. So for all of y'all that's in the malls, because you got, small children, you got to buy all this stuff for, good luck to y'all. Y'all listen, because it's a mess out there. Them folks don't be watching where they going. They bumping into you. They having accidents. Y'all sitting in traffic forever. No, absolutely not. Okay. Now we have been talking about these Epstein files, y'all. And I don't know what y'all thoughts are on it, but there's a lot of information that's coming out. And it's really seeming like a conspiracy because if you all remember, the first big batch of of the Epstein files did not have any of Trump information in there, which everybody was saying, hold on, wait a minute. Not only have they not showed Trump, they're taking his name out of the documents, just kind of glossing over Donald Trump's name. So y'all don't know that Donald Trump is actually in the documents. Now we went through that. Well, after everybody fussed about it and said, y'all playing games, because we know that this is Donald Trump's name, that, some of these the files, because they compared it to the ones that actually had Donald Trump's name, and they definitely did take out Donald Trump's name. Now they threatened legal action against Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is probably like, oh hell no. So now y'all know what happened now. Now this next drop of files, guess who was in there? Yours truly, Donald Trump. Well, we knew this the whole entire time, and we knew that they were covering this up. But why would Pam Bondi put herself in a situation that, girl, you can go to jail? Donald Trump is not going to be there forever. So now we're seeing a whole bunch of stuff with Donald Trump's name. And it's like, okay, we knew it was there. We were just wondering why you were risking your freedom, girl, because you're going to go to jail, okay, eventually. So now, y'all, it is so much stuff that's coming out, and it's making a lot of sense as to why they were taking forever with those files. So let's kind of get into it, because at the end of the day, what type of people will go along with hiding this type of information? And when I say this type of information, we're not talking about Donald Trump or Jeffrey Epstein hanging out with adults. Okay, we're talking about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein hanging out with kids.
With the world now wondering about the 10 co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein referred to in some of the Epstein files released today, it is worth considering. What would an innocent person do? What would someone who is mentioned in the Epstein files do if he or she believed that he or she is totally innocent of any wrongdoing with Jeffrey Epstein? Former President Bill Clinton's office put out a statement saying, quote, "We call on President Trump to direct Attorney General Bondi to immediately release any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton.
Now, they tried to show us all of this stuff about Bill Clinton, and people are like, look, whoever is in the files, show us. We don't really care who it is. But at this point, Bill Clinton is like, look, whatever you have, if you say you have all of this stuff on me, put it out. We want to see it. So Bill Clinton is begging the administration, put it out, because what they're trying to do is make it seem like, oh, Bill Clinton. Listen, here's the deal. There's two types of people that hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. People who may just didn't know, but then people who eventually found out and they stopped associating with him. But what they're saying with all of the flight logs and all of the hanging out that him and Donald Trump was doing, they're saying that Donald Trump, in fact, knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. But the thing of it is, what about these other men that were mentioned? Why are they so quiet? If they're so innocent, why are they not coming up, to say, hey, put out the information? So what exactly is Donald Trump trying to hide here? Because we know Bill Clinton has put out a statement saying the Epstein Files Transparency Act imposes a clear legal duty on the U.S. Department of Justice to produce the full and complete record the public demands and deserves. So this is what Bill Clinton has come back and said. He said, we call on President Trump to direct Attorney General Bondi to immediately release any remaining materials referring to or mentioning or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton. So it seems like Bill Clinton is not afraid. And he's like, look, release whatever you have on me. Okay.
And there it is. That is the model for how you handle this situation if you are in the Epstein files and you believe you did nothing wrong. Please feel free to now consider all of the prominent names you have heard this year associated with the Jeffrey Epstein, who have not demanded the immediate release of any materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of that person. Donald Trump has never demanded that. Donald Trump has done everything he could to prevent that from happening. Jeffrey Epstein's biggest business partner, Les Wexner, has never said, release everything about me that's in the Epstein files.
No, Donald Trump has never said that. In fact, as I stated, the first big dump, they actually took Donald Trump's name out. Okay. So Donald Trump seems like he definitely has something to hide here. Now that we have this second batch, and it's all Donald Trump, including flight logs, the ones that they didn't release, they released them because Pam Bondi don't want to go to prison.
And he is not saying it now after his name emerged today in a 2019 Justice Department email titled Co-Conspirators.
Wait a minute. So they're naming Donald Trump as a co-conspirator. So this was in the Epstein files. This is what they didn't want y'all to see in the beginning. I mean, y'all can read. You see what it says. Subject, co-conspirators, Sunday, July the 7th month, 2019. Okay. This is what it says. Something ain't adding up here, Donald. Why are you hiding?
Email described attempts to subpoena the list of co-conspirators, which included Ghislaine Maxwell. A legal representative for Mr. Wexner told the New York Times that he was not a target of the federal investigation or considered a co-conspirator. He provided federal prosecutors with background information on Mr. Epstein and was never contacted again, the representative said. So I guess that settles that. If a lawyer for Mr. Wexner of Ohio says he did nothing wrong, that must settle it. I would love to have that lawyer for Mr. Wexner of Ohio join us here on this program and tell us whether he responded to a grand jury subpoena and whether he testified to the grand jury. I'd love to have Mr. Wexner of Ohio come here and tell us all about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which no one has ever been able to understand or explain. Mr. Wexner is so much richer than Jeffrey Epstein could ever have dreamed of being, and no one's ever figured out why Les Wexner would be in business with Jeffrey Epstein in any way. So what was that all about? And we patiently await Mr. Wexner's lawyer issuing a statement saying that they demand immediately the release of all information in the Epstein files about him and any photograph of him in the Epstein files.
I told y'all before, these rich white men, keep in mind, these are all rich, very rich white men, okay? This is who they're protecting, the rich white man.
We patiently await that moment. There is no indication that Donald Trump was on the list of co-conspirators, but here's what Donald Trump said about Jeffrey Epstein's most important co-conspirator after she was convicted of sex trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein.
I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish...
He wish her well? The President of the United States saying that he wishes a ex trafficker well? Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Her well, whatever it is.
You wish her well? Isn't that an interesting response for a president?
Yes, he did see her numerous times over the years. New information from the Epstein files today revealed that Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane in the 1990s more often than he has ever admitted. In fact, Donald Trump has told the lie that he never flew on that plane.
Oh, he sure did. No. According to flight records, Donald Trump, let's get into it. For your situational awareness, wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported, or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. So what that means is Donald Trump allegedly was hanging around Epstein during the time that this charge was going on. Remember, I said there's two kinds of people. There are the people that maybe was hanging around Epstein, maybe just didn't know. Once they found out, they separated. Then you have the people who just didn't care, or they knew and they remained friends of Epstein. What they're saying is that Donald Trump, in fact, was flying on this man's plane after this indictment. Seems a little weird. In particular, he is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. So I guess that's why he wishes her well, honey. He wishes her well. He is listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. So we got Donald and Jeffrey Epstein as the only listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are, get this, Epstein, Donald Trump, and then guess who? A 20-year-old girl. Can't make this up. On 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers respectively were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. Listen, y'all, You ain't got to be smart to figure this shit out. I'm going to read that again because this is why Donald Trump's name was being redacted out of the files. It says on 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers, respectively, were women who were possible witnesses in the Maxwell case. You know what the Maxwell case was? SEX trafficking case. We've just finished reviewing the full records, more than 100 pages of very small script, and didn't want any of this to be a surprise down the road. Now, this is in 2020, January 8th, 2020. So this is what Donald didn't want y'all to know. This is what he didn't want y'all to see.
At least 4 of the Trump flights on the Epstein plane included Ghislaine Maxwell among the passengers Donald Trump was flying with. Donald Trump wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well. Donald Trump did not issue a statement today demanding the immediate release of any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Donald Trump. Another email about co-conspirators released today said, quote, of the 10 co-conspirators, 3 have been located in Florida and served grand jury subpoenas. 1 in Boston, 1 in New York City, and 1 in Connecticut were located and served. 4 of the 10 are outstanding, with attempts having been made. 1 is a wealthy businessman in Ohio. The remaining 3 are currently out of pocket.
Now, isn't that interesting? A wealthy businessman in Ohio. Remember, I told you all these were very, very rich white men. A very wealthy businessman out of Ohio. This is very concerning. Very, very concerning. So, seems like they're doing exactly what they were convicted of. Flying these people all over to do what?
Team is flying out tonight, tomorrow, to various locations in Florida to interview approximately 25 victims. If you were a wealthy businessman in Ohio who knew Jeffrey Epstein and you think you did nothing wrong, wouldn't you release a statement today, just like Bill Clinton's, demanding the release of any materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of yourself?
Right. If you are a wealthy businessman out of Ohio, what are you trying to hide? We're not stupid here. We know exactly what Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And this is why they were hiding the information. Well, they even saying that they feel like allegedly that Donald Trump is the one that had Jeffrey Epstein deleted now. Yeah, that is also what they're saying. Jeffrey Epstein's brother does not believe that he died by unaliving himself. So it's really starting to make a whole lot of sense, because if you recall, Jeffrey Epstein died during a Trump administration. And yeah, this is really cringy. So the wealthy businessman out of Ohio, well, I'm sure he's watching. Why don't you just step right up and say, hey, release the files? Of course, he's somewhere probably calling Donald Trump like, listen, you better not release those files.
Les Wexner is a wealthy businessman in Ohio and has not released any statement like that.
Has not released any statement. Isn't that peculiar? If you know that you are in these files and you are a man and they are saying that you were messing with little girls, you would think, if it was untrue, that you would come out and say something, but you didn't. So your inability to say anything is pretty much telling us what we already know. We know that you guys were doing some really weird stuff, really weird, unacceptable things.
If you're one of the prominent people living in the Boston area who has been publicly associated with Jeffrey Epstein, wouldn't you release a statement today demanding the release of any materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of you if you thought you did nothing wrong? Bill Clinton.
If you thought you did nothing wrong, that's the word right there. If you thought you did nothing wrong. But I think most of these people, or the majority of these people, they know exactly what it is that they did. So there will not be any statements released.
Clinton is the only person mentioned in the Epstein files who issued a statement demanding the full release of any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton.
So Bill Clinton, because what they tried to do is throw Bill Clinton under the bus, try to make him look like a weirdo. Bill Clinton is like, look, whatever you have of me, go ahead and release it. Listen, go ahead and release it. Maybe Bill Clinton was one of those people that possibly didn't know what was going on. You know, maybe he didn't know, who knows? But what he's saying here is pretty much that if these people knew or thought that they did not do anything wrong, what are they hiding from? I mean, if you hear your name being mentioned, just step right up and say, hey, you can release everything related to me. But the fact that everybody is church mice quiet, not saying anything, it's a story and it's being told. I mean, we're not stupid. There definitely was something going on here.
And so investigative reporting will continue about the possible 10 co-conspirators. More released documents by the Trump Justice Department might eventually identify those co-conspirators. But if you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, your life changed today. And now it is only a matter of time. If you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, you should know tonight that the clock is ticking on your secret. If you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, you should know tonight that you have a rendezvous with the truth coming your way.
Coming your way.
Thanks entirely to a law passed by Congress to release the Epstein files, a law that could only be passed, not because any billionaire wanted it, but could only be passed because the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who are now the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, brought the moral clarity to Washington that demanded the release of those files over Donald Trump's objection.
Right. And even with the files, the demand for the release, we know that the files really haven't been released, and it's like they're releasing them in certain stages, and it's a mess. So it's raising a lot of eyebrows, and people are like, what the hell is this? Like, why are they releasing the files like this? This is a mess. So this is really not the spirit of what, was supposed to be done and how they were actually supposed to release the file. So it's not really happening the way that it was supposed to happen, which is the number one problem. And another thing, people are starting to question it because they're releasing information and then they'll come back and say, oh, it was AI. Like, for instance, they released a video of Jeffrey Epstein, and then they says, oh, it was AI. So I think they're intentionally putting out things that's not correct, because what they want to do is put doubt in people's mind as to when it comes up in the documents about Donald Trump. Because for them to release an AI generated video of Jeffrey Epstein's cell and then say, oh, that was AI, what was the purpose of releasing something? Again, it seems like they're trying to put this information out there so people just don't know what to believe.
There is a Trump DOJ cover-up. It is illegal. It violates the federal law. The president himself was forced to sign. That is...
Oh, we need to rewind that for the people in the back.
Trump DOJ cover-up.
There is a Trump, that's Donald Trump, DOJ, Department of Justice cover-up. Cover-up meaning that they are trying to conceal the Epstein files. And let me just make sure y'all understand, Donald Trump don't give a damn about nobody but himself. So the cover-up is Donald Trump. They don't want to release the information because we have a brain and they know we're going to be like, okay, who is this weirdo that we have in the White House?
It is illegal. It violates the federal law. The president himself was forced to sign. That is the big thrust of this story. It took up, well, the first half of our newscast tonight, and we discussed it with lawyers and one member of the House committee in charge. There is also new information, and both things can be true. And so we have dedicated some time tonight because the new information substantively matters, even though, I'd be the first to tell you, it may not have as wide a political impact. But Trump and his DOJ are facing the pressure from survivors over the cover-up I've told you about. Trump isn't really seen in the first tranche of documents we got from the first document up. Instead, the DOJ...
Now, remember, guys, I said that. Remember, we received that first big batch of bull crap because it was inconclusive. We received, there were tons of pages that really didn't have nothing on it. So they really released a bunch of pages that had black ink all over it. So basically what he's saying is, people started complaining, and then it's like they started releasing some of the stuff with Donald Trump's name on it, which was in the first batch. But of course, we know that they just pretty much just covered it up. We know that Donald Trump has a tie to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, you can go Google pictures, for instance, like the one we're looking at right now.
Famously put out these other photos. Celebrities, Mick Jagger, Kevin Spacey. Those photos, while salacious, don't tell a legal story about their culpability. We did see Trump in some places. His name appears on a check in a photo. We don't know who wrote the name. We don't know the whole story behind the photo, the redaction done by the source. There's also a 2020 lawsuit that alleges Trump took a 14-year-old girl to Mar-a-Lago. Epstein took her there where she was introduced to Trump, and that, quote, Trump smiled and nodded in agreement as they talked about her as some kind of prospect. But that's a lawsuit that's long been on the books.
And I've been talking about this, and people be in my chat saying it's a lie, but the 14-year-old girl is not a lie. Let me rewind it for the people in the back, because this is not fake information. This is real. Let me rewind it.
The redaction done by the source. There's also a 2020 lawsuit that alleges Trump took a 14-year-old girl to Mar-a-Lago. Epstein took her there where she was introduced to Trump, and that, quote, Trump smiled and nodded in agreement as they talked about.
Epstein took a child to meet Donald Trump, and Donald Trump nodded in agreements. Yeah, this is real disgusting. This is a lawsuit, by the way, 2020.
Her as some kind of prospect, but that's a lawsuit that's long been on the books. Trump's denied any wrongdoing. The new files are absent of much new material on him. I want to bring in Emily Bazelon from the New York Times Magazine.
If you guys kind of heard what he said, and pretty much the new information did not really contain anything that we didn't already know with regards to Donald Trump, because of course they were hiding the information. They don't want to, they pretty much don't want to share it. They don't want to share the information because if you guys don't know, let me just share it with you. Donald Trump is using the DOJ pretty much as his own people, as if they work for him personally. And, they work for the people. Okay. But the way that he is misusing the government is strictly to protect himself.
And go right to a key complaint, Emily. This is from 1996 in the newly released files. We'll put this up here. And I'm just going to give you some material on it. Bear with me.
Now, I can go into this. So when talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and this was one of the reasons why people wanted full accountability, because Jeffrey Epstein was reported as early as, I want to say, 1996. What happened to that complaint? In 1996, there was a complaint that he took pictures of two sisters, a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. They alleged that he stole the photos and that they, for some reason, had information that he had sold these kids' photos, which is very weird. And they don't really go into how this person knew that Jeffrey Epstein did this, but it's very weird because as early as 1996, and I think even in 1995, Jeffrey Epstein was reported. We want to know, why was he never, why nothing happened to him until later, when there was so much information out there with regards to some of the things he had been doing.
Control room's going to give me, yeah, here we go. Complainant took pictures of her sisters. 1996 complaint, and I'm just going to read. Child pornography from Maria Farmer was the complainant, dated September 96. Now I'll read you what's up here. Took pictures of her sisters, 12 and 16. It was for what she viewed as personal artwork, what you might call family business. She, in the complaint, says Epstein stole the photos and then was selling them. So that's the stealing of what he was trying to turn into child pornography and then the potential trafficking in it. Annie Farmer is one of the sisters in the photos, and I want to play her. Take a listen.
To see it in writing and to know that they had this document this entire time, and how many people were harmed after that date,
That's the part that I'm talking about. They had this information since 1996. So that is a very valid question. Why was this monster allowed to steal? I mean, you was out stealing girls' pictures, kids' pictures, and selling them. But then you were allowed to maneuver through the community and hurt more people. This happened in 1996. Why was there no, why was nothing done? Why? This is not, it almost seems like, we know that Jeffrey Epstein was rich, but it also really seems like that there were other people in high places that was assisting him.
we've been saying it over and over, but to see it in black and white that way has been very emotional.
Emily, this is all new, and we wanted to get your view on this specific evidence. One thing it shows is that she was telling the truth. This is what they call contemporaneous corroboration, that she said, hey, I went to the authorities, and she didn't feel anything was really meaningfully done. It took until Friday for us to see the documentation. Now we know that all the way back to 96, there's corroboration. And the authorities did get this complaint. It's a very serious one, child pornography. And apparently Epstein got out from under that all the way back then.
Yeah, this is important.
Which makes you wonder who was actually helping Epstein. It seems like this man had a bunch of times, he was reported quite a few times, but even if the first time he was reported, nothing was done, it seems like that would have been enough trail of information after the first time, and then now the second time, because he was reported again and still nothing was done. Nothing was done because we know that money equals power. So it seems like Jeffrey Epstein had people in power allowing him to do these things. That's what it seems like to me.
Glad we're talking about it. Marie and Annie Farmer have been saying all these years that they filed this complaint. And the significance, of course, is that the authorities were on notice that Epstein had this interest in pictures of nude girls that, you know, were created for one purpose, and then it seems like he was using for another purpose, which was child pornography. And the fact that Maria and Annie Farmer complained about this so long ago, told the police, lodged the complaint, and then nothing was done. And all these years they have been asserting that they did this, but they couldn't prove it. They couldn't.
Doesn't that raise an eyebrow? Think about it. I mean, somebody that is committing the same crimes, he's being reported by different people, and we have the federal government who did absolutely nothing but yet lied and said they did. But once you get the file, you would be able to see this information, but there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So where is the information to substantiate whatever you guys said that you did with regards to Jeffrey Epstein? Because like I said, to me, it seems like Jeffrey Epstein used his money and power to do whatever he was doing, because it's clear that even after he was reported, that nothing happened.
Show that complaint really existed, and so we had to take their word for it. Well, now, as you said, it's clear that they were telling the truth, and that becomes part of this story of how long Epstein was able to get away with these crimes. It goes back much longer than we previously could verify.
And doesn't it make the feds look worse because they know things that other people don't know? When they got involved in the 2006 Florida case, there were some people pursuing that seriously. The Palm Beach police chief was seen as aggressive, and he clashed with the feds. And the feds basically said, this is being overdone. That was their claim, and they were lowering the temperature. Does it make them look worse that now we know in their files this whole time, back a decade earlier, they'd already gotten an alert about this guy being involved in some of the most heinous, serious federal crimes that exist, which is sexual trafficking of child pornography as content, which abuses children, or the actual trafficking of human children?
Yes, it absolutely makes the feds look worse. And that story has always been so hard to understand because, you know, often it is the feds who come in and make crimes more serious, right? If they're involved, that means federal charges, that ups the ante, that ups the sentencing.
Well, I'll agree with you and let you finish. That's why, again, for people who aren't lawyers, when they say, hey, don't make a federal case out of it, that means if something is minor, don't make a federal bigger case out of it. And you're reminding everyone that's the norm. This was totally aberrant.
Exactly. And now we know that they were looking the other way about even more evidence of wrongdoing, that they should have been taken seriously. And the reason is why, you know, what was happening in that office.
And I just said this, guys, what was happening? And that's pretty much what I'm saying. Why were these complaints made and nothing was done? That is a problem. You have two completely different situations. When I say completely different, they're not the same situation, but they're, you know, kind of the same caliber of crime. You have a weirdo taking and stealing pictures of children, and then you have one that has reported a weird interaction with this man, and nothing was done about it. In fact, nothing was done to the fact that they could not actually find the report. But once they, you know, complained, it was like, look, we're not getting all of the files. They were able to find these complaints within the Epstein documents. But again, why was nothing done about this? Why? They said they followed up on it, but in order to follow up on it, there would have been documentation. It's just like if somebody is charged with a crime, you don't just say, oh, they're charged. No, it's charged because there's a charging document. There's documents to follow up. It's a process. Same situation here. Y'all said that you followed up and you did all these things, but there's nothing here. So is the federal government protecting Jeffrey?
that pulled them off the track? Is it that this is an era when often the complaints of young women and girls were not taken seriously enough? Not that we're necessarily out of that time, but I think it was even more true in the 90s. Or was something worse going on, something that suggests that there was deal making, some kind of fix that was in? You know, we do know obviously that the story, this part of the story ends with this sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein, which is itself really mind-boggling.
Right. I want to show also other material we got Friday. This is FBI notes from 2019. And they show the strength of the evidence against Epstein. There's a document that has handwritten notes. That's how the FBI often will do initial intake. And you see the reference to Friends of Friends, a Brazilian group, that they were, quote, running out of girls. That's describing what the sex trafficker's viewpoint was. And a reference says Epstein didn't want a Spanish or a girl of a certain complexion, quote unquote. Another part says they witnessed asking for an ID, and they were IDing in the reverse criminal direction. They wanted to make sure under 18 because they weren't believing them, and they, quote, messed up by bringing more older girls. These are the type of investigative materials, Emily, that aren't usually public. This law says because of everything that's happened, they should be more public than usual. What do you see as important there? It suggests the FBI had strong evidence on him.
Well, the idea that people are trying to make sure that girls are young enough, and that young enough here means underage in a way that's illegal, that's also damning. And I think it's important to remember we're looking at these materials years later, after they've been redacted, and that's really important that they not reveal private information about victims. But what we're doing here is trying to assess the way that the various authorities involved handled these crimes, knowing.
How did they handle it? Based on what we see, they didn't do anything, right? I mean, you have 1996 complaints, and then before that, there was a complaint. How did they handle it? It doesn't seem like they did much of anything, if anything at all.
In the end, how serious and extensive they were.
What did they do? Doesn't seem like they did much. You guys have a nice Christmas, and I'll see you guys later.